Welcome.
Shalom.
Shalom. Okay, let's get started.
Okay, so let's get started with Belligerent Benjamites. This is a group team effort, and the first thing that I want to do is thank Neil for doing the basics of this PowerPoint, putting it together. He saved us many hours of time so that we could present it to you this week. I also want to say that we kind of wondered if we should present it or not, but after what we did last night and the reactions and whatever, I'm sure that this is a story that has to be presented. Belligerent Benjamites and how they encountered judgment. So let's go on. I'm going to start out here for a little bit, and Tim will do the last half. But let's start out. I'll give you a little bit of an overview of what's happening in this story, because not many people may even know that this story is in the Old Testament, and those that do don't like to read it more than once. But it is a teaching from Judges chapters 19 to 21. We're going to read every word of those chapters this morning. And I would like you to take note of the date. It's around 1406 BC. This is about 50 years. This event is going to take place about 50 years after Moses passed away. And then Joshua came in and he started leading the camp. And he spent 20 years cleaning out the camp, like they were told to clean out the land, that land was for Yahuwah's people. But Joshua has already passed away approximately 30 years when this particular story happens. And as we go through it, you're going to see that things really went from bad to worse. So all the studies for calendar are up on studythecalendar.com. You can go there. If you want the PDFs, they will be there by tomorrow. But anyway, let's get started with Belligerent Benjamites. I want to give you just 2 or 3 or 4 slides of an introduction so that when we read the scriptures, you'll be able to follow it, of names and places. And yes, it is a very unusual day start study, incredibly unusual. And you know, there's so many studies in the scriptures, and they speak of Yahuwah's day start, and some of them have surprises. And yes, some testimonies show the true commencement of Yahuwah's cycles through the most unusual circumstances. And even for many, after reading this account, they may well say, what in the world was going on? Like, what is going on? And you're going to find out. We're not going to go into all the details of the study because we're focusing on calendar, and there's a lot of calendar language, but we do want to know what we can learn from this testimony today. So as we go into the next slide, we're going to look over just a little bit of an overview so that you're not lost. This is a traumatic testimony. Yahuwah could have chosen not to put it in the scriptures, but he put it there for a reason, and he wants us to know what the reason is. So it's kind of like this. This scriptural testimony is an episode concerning a Levite's concubine, or his wife, who was also from the tribe of Levi. That's kind of important to remember. It is one of the most disturbing texts in the Hebrew scriptures. The record describes a Levite who is from Ephraim, we'll find out where that is, and his concubine, he's from around Shiloh. And they traveled down through the Benjamite city of Gibeah. You're going to find out why he went that direction in the first place. It was south. And during an overnight stay, a mob from the tribe of Benjamin demanded to sodomize the Levite. But instead, the Levite ends up turning over his concubine to the crowd, and they rape her until she dies. That's the sad part. Many, many lives were lost over this incident. Traumatic amount of lives. And as we go on to the conclusion of this overview, on the next slide, on slide number 5, we're going to see in very short order that this whole situation resulted in a battle at Gibeah, in which the other tribes of Israel sought vengeance. In this civil war, the tribe of Benjamin was eventually defeated, with the loss of all the women and all the children. Only 600 men of Benjamin escaped. This happened because Benjamin chose to protect the guilty parties, and they refused to turn them over for justice. There was commands from Yahuwah that they were supposed to be their brother's keeper, and when things were not going right, they were supposed to correct it. But Benjamin was not interested in doing that. And even though the fate of the concubine is particularly gruesome, for some reason, Yahuwah preserved this testimony in covenant calendar language. So today, this study is not going to unravel all of the details of every event and why things happened the way that they did. However, there is a significant amount of calendar language to be noted when examining Yahuwah's commanded day start. And we're going to look at that. But before I say anything else, I just want to make a little note here. Remember, I said the date. This is about 50 years after Moses died. It's really obvious that all of Israel was observing the day start in the morning and not at sunset. This is only 50 years after Moses died, so that's important to remember. So let's get started on the next slide. And to see a little bit of the geography, look at some maps, because there's a lot of places that are mentioned in this particular study, and I didn't know where they were. I couldn't figure out what was what. I actually had to go to a map and to see what was happening, because there's quite a bit of distance involved. So Tim is going to follow with his cursor as I go through these points. This Levite was at Shiloh, and even though Shiloh wasn't on this map, that's about where it was there. You can see Shiloh marked very, very well. And they were traveling. He had to travel down to Bethlehem, all the way south. His concubine left. Something was going wrong, and she went down to her father's house at Bethlehem. Well, he waited for her to come back, and she didn't. So finally, he went to go and get her, and he was going to take her home. He bypassed Jerusalem on his way home because he said too dangerous to stay in Jerusalem, to spend the night in Gibeah. So you see that Gibeah is not too far north of Jerusalem, just maybe a couple of miles, okay? But Gibeah was the sign of this crime. All Israel, you can look on the left map, from Dan in the north to Beersheba way in the south, including Gilead. In the bigger map, you'll see I have Gilead there on the east side of the Jordan. What happened is that the Levites summoned all of Israel from north to south and across to the Jordan to come to Mizpah. Can you find Mizpah on the map? It's just north of Gibeah there. And they were summoned to come for a council. Well, in the asking and the throwing of lots, Judah was summoned to go to war with Gibeah first. So the whole tribe of Judah was to be the ones to go to war with Gibeah first. But they were defeated. Eventually, Benjamin was defeated, and the whole tribe was destroyed, except for 600 men that got away up to Rimmon, and it's on another map. It's not on this one. I think it'll be on the next one, but they escaped to Rimmon. They didn't have to suffer for their crime. Now remember, there were no women left for the 600 men, and Israel had vowed at Mizpah that they were not going to give their daughters or any of their women to the tribe of Benjamin for what they did. But then they thought, oh my goodness, we're going to lose a tribe. One tribe is going to be lost from us today. So they made an interesting vow. They said, now who is it? Who is it that did not come up to this plea? Well, it was Jabesh Gilead. Jabesh in the area of Gilead that did not respond. Oh no, they come under judgment too for not showing up to help. Now remember, they were to keep the camp clean, okay? So some of them said they weren't going to be involved, but there was consequences for that. And all of the men were killed, and all of the women in Jabesh that had any relationships with a man were also killed. there was only 400 women left that were virgins. Well, there was 600 Benjamites, and there was only 400 women. So there was another vow made at Shiloh, and there was a feast, and they supplied some wives to the rest of the Benjamites so that the tribe would not be lost. It's just a very interesting story, has some very interesting details. So as we go to the next slide, we're going to look a little bit at the places of where these battles were conducted. And oh, Tim, I just about forgot. Go ahead, Tim.
Yes, we want, we want to mention that at this time, in this time frame, there was no king in Israel in those days, and every man did whatever he thought was right. So there was no king to give a final leadership. So what happened kind of was on people's conscience.
Yes, exactly, Tim. And the thing is that when you really look back at the story and everything, there could have been a leader. It could have been a Melchizedek priest leader like Moses was. There could have been a leader, but they rejected that leader at Mount Sinai. So they were left with no one. They weren't really following Yah's instructions too well at that time, but there was no leader. So they were taking things into their own hands. We need to remember that when we read this story. So this is kind of the area on the map of where these battles, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but in day one, the Benjamins struck down 22,000 men there at Gibeah. And then on day two, the Benjamins struck down another 18,000 men. And it could be that these men were corrupt as well. We don't know, but you can kind of see there on the map, there was a lot of activity going on. And then day three, these are all calendar language comments. The Israelites, they set an ambush for the Benjamites, and then things began to happen. So you can see that as the ambush happened, these green lines, these green dotted lines here, the Benjamites just scattered everywhere. They just started running, and some of them went all the way up to Rimmon. You can see that on block number 5 there, that many of the Benjamins escaped up to Rimmon. And that was also a place of one of their pagan gods, but they did find some safety there. Well, long story short, the Israelites did take an oath at Mizpah. You can see where it is there on the map, that they were not going to give their daughters to Benjamin, and they had other plans in order to rectify all of this stuff. They actually did try to help in the end, even though it didn't seem too good to start out. But the men of Israel pursued the Benjamites for the crime that was going on. And it's a good thing that they did, because it would have gotten much, much worse. Who knows what the stories would have been. So Daoud is going to start out, and he's going to read. We have about 12 slides here of the story. Daoud is going to start out reading for us, and we'll go through this story so you get all the details so that you can follow the calendar teaching when we get to it. Thank you, Daoud.
Morning, everybody. And it came to pass in those days, when there was no king in Israel, that there was a certain Levite sojourning on the side of Mount Ephraim, who took to him a concubine out of the Bethlehem, Judah. And his concubine played the whore against him, and they went away from him into her father's house to Bethlehem, Judah, and there were there 4 whole months. And her husband arose and went after her, to speak friendly unto her, and to bring her again, having his servant with him and a couple of asses. And she brought him to her father's house, and when her father of the damsel saw him, he rejoiced to meet him. And his father-in-law, the damsel's father, retained him, and he abode with him 3 days. So they did not eat or drink, so they did eat and drink and lodge there. And it came to pass on the 4th day, when they arose early in the morning, that he rose up to depart, and the damsel's father said unto his son-in-law, Comfort thy heart with a morsel of bread, and afterward go your way. And they sat down and did eat and drink both of them together. For the damsel's father had said unto the man, Be content, I pray thee, and tarry all night, and let thine heart be merry. And when the man rose up to depart, his father-in-law urged him, therefore he lodged there again. And he arose early in the morning on the 5th day to depart. And the damsel's father said, Comfort thy heart, I pray thee. And they tarried until afternoon, and they did eat both of them. And when the man rose up to depart, he and his concubine and his servant, his father-in-law, the damsel's father, said unto him, Behold, now the day draweth towards evening. I pray thee, tarry all night. Behold, the day groweth to an end. Lodge here, that thy heart may be merry, and go tomorrow, the 6th day. That's as far as I can read. It's cut off.
And then it says, get you early on your way that thou mayest go home. Well, Deanna's going to help us with the second part of this story. And just keep your ears wide open.
But the man would not tarry that night of the 5th, but he rose up and departed and came over against Jabus, which is in Jerusalem. And there were with him 2 asses saddled. His concubine also was with him. And when they were by Jabus, the day was far spent. And the servant said unto his master, Come, I pray thee, and let us turn into this city of the Jebusites and lodge in it. And his master said unto him, We will not turn aside thither into the city of a stranger that is not of the children of Israel. We will pass over to Gibeah. And he said unto his servant, Come, and let us draw near to one of these places to lodge all night in Gibeah or in Ramah. And they passed on and went their way, and the sun went down upon them when they were by Gibeah, which belongeth to Benjamin. And they turned aside thither to go in and to lodge in Gibeah. And when he went in, he sat him down in a street of the city, for there was no man that took them into his house to lodging. And behold, there came an old man from his work out of the field at even, which was also of Mount Ephraim. And he sojourned in Gibeah. But the men of the place were Benjamites. And when he had lifted up his eyes, he saw a wayfaring man in the street of the city. And the old man said, Whither goest thou, and whence comest thou? And he said unto him, We are passing from Bethlehem, Judah, toward the side of Mount Ephraim, near Shiloh. From thence am I. And I went to Bethlehem, Judah, but I am now going to the house of Yahuwah, and there is no man that receiveth me to his house.
Yet there is both straw and provender for our asses, and there is bread and wine also for me, and for thy handmaid, and for the young man which is with thy servants. There is no want of anything. And the old man said, Peace be with thee. Howsoever, let all thy wants lie upon me, only lodge not in the street. So he brought him into his house, and gave provender unto the asses, and they washed their feet, and did eat and drink. Now as they were making their hearts merry, behold, the men of the city, certain sons of Belial, beset the house round about, and beat at the door, and spake to the master of the house, the old man, saying, Bring forth the man that came into thine house, that we may know him. And the man, the master of the house, went out unto them, and said unto them, Nay, my brother, nay, I pray you, do not so wickedly. Seeing that this man has come into mine house, do not this folly. Behold, here is my daughter, a maiden, and his concubine. Them I will bring out now, and humble ye them, and do with them what seemeth good unto you. But unto this man do no so vile a thing. But the man would not hearken to him. So the men took his concubine, and brought her forth unto them, and they knew her, and abused her all the night until the morning. And when the day began to spring, they let her go. Then came the woman in the dawning of the day, and fell down at the door of the man's house where her lord was, till it was light. And her lord rose up in the morning, and opened the doors of the house, and went out to go his way. And behold, the woman, his concubine, was fallen down at the door of the house, and her hands were upon the threshold. Just a note here, that word for day began to spring, that's H5927, Allah. It's a primitive root. It means to ascend. be high or actively to mount. It's used in a great variety of senses, as KJV shows, arise up or causes to ascend at once, or the break of the day. Just different ways to use this word. We don't normally run into this word. I thought it was just nice to look at and have some different ideas. Going to continue on here.
Thank you much, Tim. And now we're coming to the part of the story that is very hard to read. But as I go through it, I just want you to understand that what we're reading here right now is nothing compared to what happened at the point of our salvation in the Gospels. Just keep that in mind. It goes on to say in chapter 19, and he said unto her, Up, and let us be going. But none answered. Then the man took her up upon an ass, and the man rose up and got him into his place. And when he was come into his house, he took a knife, and he laid hold on his concubine, and he divided her together with her bones into 12 pieces, and sent her into all the coasts of Israel. Just think how hard that would have been. Just think about it, how awful. And it was so that all that saw it said, all of Israel said, there was no such deed done nor seen from the day that the children of Israel came up out of the land of Egypt on to this day. Consider of it, take advice, and speak your minds. And so that was the reaction. What are we going to do about this crime that just happened? Chapter 20, verse 1. Israel is going to go to war with the Benjamites. Then all the children of Israel went out, and the congregation was gathered together as one man, all the way from Dan even to Beersheba and the land of Gilead, unto Yahuwah. This was at Mizpah. And the chief of all the people, even of all the tribes of Israel, presented themselves in the assembly of the people of Elohim, 400,000 footmen that drew the sword. Now the children of Benjamin heard that the children of Israel were coming up to Mizpah. And then said the children of Israel, Tell us, how was this wickedness? Like, what in the world happened here? And the Levite speaks up, the husband of the woman that was slain. And this is what he answered. I came into Gibeah that belongeth to Benjamin, I and my concubine to lodge. And the men of Gibeah rose up against me. In fact, what he was saying is that those men wanted to kill him. He said, they rose up against me, and they beset the house round about upon me by night. And they thought to have slain me and my concubine. Now they have forced her that she is dead. And I took my concubine, and I cut her in pieces, and I sent her throughout all the country of the inheritance of Israel. Why? For they have committed lewdness and folly in Israel. He was trying to get the point across of what really happened. Behold, you are all children of Israel. Give here your advice and your counsel. And Deanna is going to carry on with the story.
And all the people arose as one man, saying, We will not any of us go to his tent, neither will any of us turn into his house. But now this shall be the thing which we will do to Gibeah. We will go up by lot against it. And we will take 10 men of 100 throughout all the tribes of Israel, and 100 of 1,000, and 1,000 of 10,000 to fetch victual for the people, that they may do when they come to Gibeah of Benjamin, according to all the folly that they have wrought in Israel. So all the men of Israel gathered against the city, knit together as one man. And the tribes of Israel sent men through all the tribe of Benjamin, saying, What wickedness is this that is done among you? Now therefore deliver us the men, the children of Belial, which are in Gibeah, that we may put them to death and put away evil from Israel. But the children of Benjamin would not hearken to the voice of their brethren, the children of Israel. But the children of Benjamin gathered themselves together out of the cities unto Gibeah to go out to battle against the children of Israel. And the children of Benjamin were numbered at that time out of the cities 26,000 men that drew sword, beside the inhabitants of Gibeah, which were numbered 700 chosen men. Among all this people, there were 700 chosen men left-handed. Everyone could sling stones at a hairbreadth and not miss. And the men of Israel, beside Benjamin, were numbered 400,000 men that drew sword. All these were men of war.
Yes. So let's continue on. And the children of Israel arose, and they went up to the house of Elohim, and they asked counsel of Elohim and said, which of us shall go up first to battle on that first day of many battles? Which of us shall go up first against the children of Benjamin? And Yahuwah said, Judah shall go up first. And the children of Israel rose up in the morning and camped against Gibeah. And the men of Israel went out to battle against Benjamin, and the men of Israel put themselves in array to fight against them at Gibeah. And the children of Benjamin came forth out of Gibeah and destroyed down to the ground of the Israelites that day 22,000 men. And the people of the men of Israel encouraged themselves, and they set their battle again in array in the place where they put themselves in array on the first day. And the children of Israel went up, and they wept before Yahuwah until even. And they asked counsel of Yahuwah, saying, shall I go up again to battle against the children of Benjamin, my brother? And Yahuwah said, go up against him. And the children of Israel came near against the children of Benjamin the second day. And Benjamin went forth against them out of Gibeah on the second day, and destroyed down to the ground of the children of Israel another 18,000. All of these drew the sword. Then all the children of Israel and all the people went up, and this time they came unto the house of Elohim, and they wept, and they sat there before Yahuwah, and this time they fasted that day until even. And they offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before Yahuwah. And Daud is going to continue the story.
And the children of Israel inquired of Yahuwah, for the ark of the covenant of Elohim was there in those days. And Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, stood before it in those days, saying, shall I yet again go out to battle against the children of Benjamin, my brother, or shall I cease? And Yahuwah said, go up, for tomorrow I will deliver them into thine hands. And Israel sends liars, which is an ambush, and wait around Gibeah. And the children of Israel went up against the children of Benjamin on the third day, and put themselves in array against Gibeah as at other times. And the children of Benjamin went out against the people, and were drawn away from the city, and began to smite of the people, and kill, as of other times, in the highways, of which one goeth up to the house of Elohim, and the other goes to Gibeah in the field, about 30 men. And the children of Benjamin said, they are smitten down before us, as at first. But the children of Israel said, let us flee and draw them from the cities into the highway. And all the men of Israel rose up out of their place, and put themselves in array at Baal Tamar. And the liers in wait of Israel came forth out of their place, and even out of the meadows of Gibeah. And there came against Gibeah 10,000 chosen men out of Israel, and the battle was sore, but they knew not that evil was near them. And Yahuwah smote Benjamin before Israel, and the children of Israel destroyed of the Benjamites that day 25,100 men. All of these drew the sword. Only 600 men of Benjamin escaped.
So the children of Benjamin saw that they were smitten, for the men of Israel gave place to the Benjamites, because they trusted in the liers in wait, which they had set beside Gibeah. And the liers in wait hasted and rushed upon Gibeah, and the liers in wait drew themselves along and smote all the city with the edge of the sword. Now there was an appointed sign between the men of Israel and the liers in wait, that they should make a great flame with smoke rise up out of the city. But when the men of Israel retired in the battle, Benjamin began to smite and kill of the men of Israel about 30 persons. For they said, surely they are smitten down before us as in the first battle. But when the flame began to arise up out of the city with a pillar of smoke, the Benjamites looked behind them, and behold, the flame of the city ascended to heaven. And when the men of Israel turned again, the men of Benjamin were amazed, for they saw that evil had come upon them. Therefore they turned their backs before the men of Israel unto the way of the wilderness. But the battle overtook them, and then which come out of the cities they destroyed in the midst of them. Thus they enclosed the Benjamites round about, and chased them, and trode them down with ease over against Gibeah toward the sun rising. And there fell of Benjamin 18,000 men. All of these were men of valor. This word, or for the sun rising, this is H4217. It's Mitzrach. And the definition is east, or eastward, a place of the sun rising, or the east side. So they chased the Benjamites to the east side of Gibeah. That's where they slew them there. And just take a little note on this word, Mitzrach. This word is one letter different than for mitzrot. It has a chet at the end instead of a tav, somewhat of a family word, but it does have the east definition to it. Just a little note of interest.
And they turned and fled towards the wilderness and to the rock of Rimron, and they gleaned of them in the highway 5,000 men, and pursued hard after them until Gidom, and slew 2,000 men of them. So that all which fled that day of Benjamin were 20 and 5,000 men that drew the sword. All these were men of valor. But 600 men turned and fled to the wilderness unto the rock of Rimron, and abode in the rock Rimron 4 months. And the men of Israel turned again upon the children of Benjamin, and smote them with the edge of the sword, as well as men of every city, as the beast, and all that came to hand. Also they set on fire all the cities that they came to.
Now the men of Israel had sworn in Mitzvah, saying, there shall not any of us give his daughter unto Benjamin to wife. And the people came to the house of Elohim, and abode there till even before Elohim, and lifted up their voices, and wept sore, and said, O Yahuwah Elohim of Israel, why is this come to pass in Israel, that there should be today one tribe lacking in Israel? And it came to pass on the morrow that the people rose early and built there an altar, and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. Judges 21:25. In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes.
And the children of Israel said, who is there among all the tribes of Israel that come not up with the congregation unto Yahuwah? For they had made a great oath concerning him that came not up to Yahuwah to Mizpah, saying, he shall surely be put to death. And the children of Israel repented them for Benjamin their brother, and said, there is one tribe cut off from Israel this day. How shall we do for wives for them that remain, seeing we have sworn by Yahuwah that we will not give them of our daughters to wives? And they said, what one is there of the tribes of Israel that came not up to Mizpah to Yahuwah? And behold, there came none to the camp from Jabesh Gilead to the assembly. For the people were numbered, and behold, there were none of the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead there. And the congregation sent thither 12,000 men of the valiantest, and commanded them, saying, go and smite the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead with the edge of the sword, with the women and with the children.
This is the thing that ye shall do. Ye shall utterly destroy every male and every woman that hath lain by man in Jabesh Gilead. And they found among the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead 400 young virgins that had known no man by lying with any male. And they brought them unto the camp to Shiloh, which is in the land of Canaan. And the whole congregation sent some to speak to the 600 children of Benjamin that were in the rock Rimmon, and to call peaceably unto them. And Benjamin came again at that time, and they gave them wives which they had saved alive of the women of Jabesh Gilead. And yet so they sufficed them not. And the people repented them for Benjamin, because that Yahuwah had made a breach in the tribes of Israel. Then the elders of the congregation said, How shall we do for wives for them that remain, seeing that the women are destroyed out of Benjamin? And they said, There must be inheritance for them that be escaped of Benjamin, that a tribe be not destroyed out of Israel. Howbeit, we may not give them wives of our daughters. For the children of Israel have sworn, saying, Cursed be he that giveth a wife to Benjamin.
In verse 19, then they said, Behold, there is a feast of Yahuwah in Shiloh yearly in a place which is on the north side of Bethel, on the east side of the highway, that goeth up from Bethel to Shechem, and on the south of Labana. Therefore they commanded the children of Benjamin, saying, Go and lie in wait in the vineyards, and see, and behold, if the daughters of Shiloh come out to dance in dances, then come ye out of the vineyards, and catch you every man his wife of the daughters of Shiloh, and go to the land of Benjamin. And it shall be, when their fathers or their brethren come up unto us to complain, that we will say unto them, Be favorable unto them for our sakes, because we reserved not to each man his wife in the war, for ye did not give unto them at this time, that ye should be guilty. And the children of Benjamin did so, and they took themselves wives according to their number of them that danced, whom they caught. And they went and returned unto their inheritance, and repaired the cities, and they dwelt in them. And the very last verse of this chapter, it says this again, verse 25, There was no king in Israel in those days, and every man did whatever he thought was right. They were really trying to clean the camp of Israel and keep it clean so that they could be a light. It is a gruesome story, but there's a reason for it. Anyway, that is the backdrop for the calendar study that is coming. And enjoy the last slides here up to slide 43, because now you have an understanding so that when Tim goes through the calendar study, first day, second day, evening and morning, you'll have a little bit of an idea of what's going on. So Tim, we're waiting to hear the rest of the story.
Belligerent Benjamites. This is just a little paragraph for the people that are new to covenant calendar and the way that we write their studies. Just some definitions here. These dawn commencement studies refrain from using the word day, translated from the original Hebrew word yom. The word day loses a massive amount of definitive correctness in its ambiguous definitions. Day can indicate 12 or 24 hours, day or night, or both. To understand scripture correctly, it is imperative to be far more accurate. Preference is given to the word cycle in place of day to denote the 24 hours. When quoting the scriptures or citing the Shabbat day, you will see it. Otherwise, cycle is the word of choice, and the 24-hour cycle will be further defined to pinpoint the 2 seasons found in each of the 24 hours. Number 1, cycle. 24 hours containing the 2 seasons of light, which is Or, and night, which is Leil. And season, H6256, eighth. And it's a 12-hour block of time, whether it is the light or the night season. An excellent application example is found in Yirmiyahu 33:20-25, the light and the night season. This is a very, very extremely important topic that we need to understand also. So I just hope you can understand when you see cycle third cycle, fourth cycle, etc., etc. When you see that, I would hope that you can understand that is one of the days of the week. And this will help you in our studies. Yes, this is a very interesting study. It's difficult to read. I'm not even going to try and explain what all happened because I'll be very honest with you, I don't understand it all myself. What I do understand, though, is that in this story is some very, very strong words for calendar. They were recorded there very specifically so that we understand Yahuwah's timing. So let's go here. What was the problem with the Benjamites? In Judges 19, we have read about the concubine who was abused until the dawn of the morning. She died with her hands upon the threshold of the door of the old man. The people of Israel, wanting justice, were challenged to war by the tribe of Benjamin. Judges 20, verse 14. But the children of Benjamin gathered themselves together out of the cities unto Gibeah to go out to battle against the children of Israel. The Hebrew men of war were all accounted for, and then the Hebrew nation undertook a very important preliminary precaution. They assembled at the house of worship to ask guidance from Yahuwah. Judges 20, verse 18. And the children of Israel arose and went up to the house of Elohim and asked counsel of Elohim and said, which of us shall go up first to the battle against the children of Benjamin? And Yahuwah said, Judah shall go up first. So I want to ask you here, was their question wrong? Did they ask the wrong question? And I'm pointing out, which of us shall go up first to the battle? I'm wondering if maybe it would have been better if they had have asked, shall one of us go up to battle? But they just assumed that they were going to battle and they didn't ask for Yahuwah for his permission. So I'm wondering if this is a problem or not. This is just my thoughts. This was the first of 3 occurrences of the Hebrews in consulting with Yahuwah for guidance concerning this terrible event. Judges 20, verse 19. And the children of Israel rose up in the morning. That word is boker in the Hebrew, and encamped against Gibeah. Morning, 1242, boker, and it's from H1239. Properly, dawn, as the breaking of the day, generally in the morning, early morning or morrow. Let's look at H1239, from which it came, Bahar, and it is a primitive root, properly to plow. What do you mean to plow? What does plowing have to do with the morning? Well, for those that have seen my previous studies on here in Covenant Calendar, I will put a picture of an ox pulling a plow. What does plow have to do with this word? What does the action of the plow do? It divides, it separates, it distinguishes, and it distinguishes the former field which has been plowed. The dirt has been overturned. It is history. It distinguishes it. It draws a line from the other side of the field, which is future, which has to be accomplished yet. That's why this definition to plow is so important, because it illustrates very, very clearly exactly the underlying theme of boker. What does boker do? Boker, or the dawn, it stops the previous day, the 24 hours, and it initiates the new 24 hours. It's all in the definitions. Continuing with the definition here, to break forth. What happens at dawn? Does not the light break forth? The warriors arose before sunrise at dawn and prepared for war. However, they were soundly defeated by the Benjamites. The next cycle, the second day, they assembled before Yahuwah for a second time. In this instance, they were weeping and pleading when? Until even. Judges 20, verse 23. And the children of Israel went up and wept before Yahuwah until even, and asked counsel of Yahuwah, saying, shall I go up again to battle against the children of Benjamin my brother? And Yahuwah said, go up against him. The Hebrew word used here for even is orb or erev. Very important words. This word even gives you your timing. This is calendar talk, pure calendar talk. The etymological dictionary of the Hebrew language. We're going to look at the definitions here. Orb, or evening, to set, said especially of the sun, to enter, go in, to go down. It became evening, it grew dark, to change, to exchange, to mix, mixed, mingled, mixed company, sunset, evening, entering of the sun, weft, and woof. Interesting words. We're going to look at those. Strong's, H6153, Erev, and that is from 6150. Dusk, or night, or the evening tide. A Hebrew lexicon by John Parkhurst, to mix or to mingle. Note, there is a very revealing page excerpt from this source on the meanings of evening, which includes the phrase Ben ha-arbeyim, between the two evenings, for the slaying of the Passover lamb. If this interests you, please request this excerpt. We have done numerous studies on this topic here about Ben ha-arbeyim, and what it reveals is absolutely astounding. I highly recommend that these studies are looked at very, very carefully. The Israelites were asking for guidance from Yahuwah until the mixing of the light season with the darkness of the night season. The battle commenced on the boker, on the morning or dawn of the next new cycle. A second time, the Benjamites delivered the Israelites a resounding defeat. Here is the third time the Israelites petitioned Yahuwah, this time with fasting and sacrificial offerings. It is the second time Scripture records these words, until even. Judges 20, verse 26. Then all the children of Israel, all the people, went up and came unto the house of Elohim and wept, and sat there before Yahuwah and fasted that day until even. That day until even. That means the sunset has passed and the evening twilight has set in, yet it is called that day. Yom, a singular day. The sunset did not change the day in this event. Continuing on, and they offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before Yahuwah. Recalling from the definitions, the time frame is now in the mixing of light, erev. The evening dusk is nearing. That mixing of light and darkness simply cannot occur when the sunshine, the orb of the sun, is in the sky. Direct sunlight does not allow the darkness to mix with the light. For having the mixing, or the erev, or the even, as we know in English, the sunset must occur first. So what was Yahuwah's response to their inquiries? Judges 20, verse 28. And Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aharon, stood before it in those days, saying, shall I yet again go out to battle against the children of Benjamin, my brother, or shall I cease? And Yahuwah said, go up, for tomorrow I give them into thine hand. Tomorrow, that is an incredibly important word. It is calendar talk. It is imperative we understand the word tomorrow. The Hebrew word is machar, and we need to understand this correctly. Strong's, H4279, machar, probably from H309. properly deferred, i.e., the morrow, usually tomorrow, indefinitely hereafter, and time to come, tomorrow. The etymological dictionary of the Hebrew language, mahar, tomorrow, time in front. That means it's not inclusive. It is a different time. It is an exchange point. Time in front, the morrow. A Hebrew lexicon by John Parkhurst from 1762. As a noun or particle, mahar is used for commutation or change of time, as of tomorrow for this day. It is not it is not inclusive. It designates a change in time. Hence, mahar, tomorrow, the morrow. Also, mahar denotes time at a greater distance, time to come, time hereafter. You'll see that in Exodus 13:14, Deuteronomy 6:20, and Joshua 9:6. Morrow, also morning. Yahuwah said, "Go up, for mahar, or tomorrow, I give them into thine hand." Webster's Encyclopedic Dictionary of the Hebrew Language. The next day after the present, or after any day specified. Good morrow, a term of salutation. Tomorrow, on the morrow, the next day. Not inclusive with the immediate day, it is the next day. There is a time frame change. Okay, it's time for a little perspective here. 3 times the Israelites petitioned Yahuwah, Judges 20, 18, 23, and 26. 2 times it is recorded they petitioned until the evening, Judges 20, verse 23 and 26. The 3rd time they were desperately seeking advice, so they added fasting, burnt offerings, and peace offerings to their petitions. They were serious. Out of desperation, they eagerly went until dusk, not letting any precious time slip by unnoticed. Judges 20, verse 26. At the end of the light season, the evening or the dusk after sunset, Yahuwah answered them, "Go up, for tomorrow I will deliver them into your hand." Judges 20, verse 28. And yes, we're going to be bringing this up on charts so we can see exactly when it was spoken and when the tomorrow is. That will be coming shortly. When Yahuwah was speaking or commanding, the dusk, the Erev, was settling in. That means that the sun had already set. The use of the word mahar, or tomorrow, for the timing start of the battle would necessarily, by definition, cause the battle to begin at the following dusk, 24 hours away. The following dusk? Are you paying attention? Why the following dusk? Well, that is only if sunset begins the cycles. Do they? Is that what we find in the scriptures? This is what we're going to check out. The battle could begin tomorrow, or mahar, morning, as promised, according to dawn design as per creation exposure. We're going to look at both options. Scripture tells us they went up to battle on the 3rd Yom. The men of Israel pursued and eliminated the Benjamites toward the sun rising, or to the east side of the city, Judges 20, verse 43. And there were 25,000 warriors that died upon that day. Let's place the 4th point that Yahuwah answered them in the evening of what to do onto a chart to be sure of when Yahuwah was answering the Israelites and exactly when the tomorrow would have been. Yahuwah said, "Go up, for tomorrow I give them into thine hand." Do you think that word tomorrow is important? chart 1 of 3. This is a look at sunset theory's attempted application of Yahuwah's command. The question, are we going to be able to place Yahuwah's command in sunset theory and have it have alignment with the scriptures? Will everything fall in place perfectly, or are we going to find some confusion? This is sunset theory's take. On this second cycle, or was it a third cycle by reason of a sunset? On this second cycle, after their second battle with Benjamin, the children of Israel gathered at the house of Yahuwah, weeping, fasting, and offering burnt offerings and peace offerings. When? Until evening. That is Erev, and that is the twilight mixture of light and darkness, which can only happen after the sunset. It is at this twilight mixture in the evening that Yahuwah answered them. Yahuwah says, "Go up, for tomorrow I give them into thine hand." It becomes very, very important to know when the tomorrow is. What tomorrow did Yahuwah mean? Did he mean according to dawn, or did Yahuwah indicate according to sunset? So when is sunset's tomorrow? Sunset's tomorrow begins here at the following twilight after the sunset. Is this when the Israelites rose up early in the morning to battle? For that word boker is written in the scriptures. So how can it be after sunset? The Israelites operated as in the former contests. Verse 19 tells us they were up at boker, dawn, to begin the battle. Is there a problem here? Do we see a discrepancy with the word tomorrow and sunset theory? Question: if the Israelites were still gathered after the sunset, on the cycle after the second battle, what cycle was it according to sunset theory? For if the sunset had changed the day, would it actually have been the third cycle? That's not what we read in the scriptures, but this is what we have been taught for many, many years. Myself, I used to believe that sunset to sunset was the way to observe the days of Yahuwah, but that's not what the scripture says, not that I can find. Let's continue on. Scenario number 1. If Yahuwah's words spoken in box number 2, where he says, "Go up, for tomorrow I give them into thine hand," if these were indeed spoken on the third cycle by reason of the sunset theory, and the Hebrew warriors went to battle the very next morning, or even sometime before the next sunset had occurred on this third cycle, could Yahuwah be held responsible for not delivering their Benjamite brothers into their hands before the tomorrow began at sunset? For he did say he was going to deliver them tomorrow. But on sunset theory, then they had got up, went to battle before that point of time, the Machar, according to sunset theory. So is there a problem with this word Machar? Or is there a problem with sunset theory? What do we find in the scripture? What does not align? Can we align sunset theory with the words of the scriptures? Or is there confusion? Scenario number 2. If the warriors had waited for nearly 24 hours until the sunset arrived, bringing with it the tomorrow and the promised deliverance, was the final battle actually fought on the fourth cycle? Would that render the scripture's documentation incorrect? We have an option. We have a decision to make here. What are we going to believe? Are we going to look at the words of the scriptures, which are inspired by Yahuwah? Are we going to accept them as is written? Or are we going to follow the traditional teachings of man, which has sunset to sunset? Which one aligns with the scriptures? Which one is going to be our foundation moving forward? Do you see the confusion here? Do you see the definite misfit of information caused by the erroneous idea that sunset changes the cycles? What happens when the divine system of dawn, beginning the cycles as documented in Genesis 1, what happens when dawn is arranged into this event? Are we going to find alignment with the scriptures? Chart 2 of 3, Yahuwah's second cycle command, dawn design. If you look on the left, you'll see that the dawn starts the day. That is cycle number 2. On Yahuwah's second cycle, after their second battle with Benjamin, the children of Israel gathered at the house of Yahuwah, weeping, fasting, and offering burnt offerings and peace offerings. When? Until evening, until the twilight mixture, the Erev, until the sun has set and the light is allowed to mix with the oncoming darkness. So far, it looks good with dawn design. In this twilight mixture, Yahuwah answers, "Go up, for tomorrow I give them into thine hand." Tomorrow. When is the tomorrow according to dawn? To dawn. Tomorrow, Machar, begins here with dawn, as per the creation account of Genesis 1. Machar, the definitions tell us it is a different time. There is an exchange in time, a time of the future, tomorrow. Israel, as in the first battle, rises at Boker, or dawn, to start the new cycle on the tomorrow, or on Machar, and they are ready to do battle with Yahuwah as their commander-in-chief. So far, there's no problem with dawn to dawn and the scriptures. Perfect alignment thus far. The battle can now begin on the third cycle, as documented, reflecting perfect alignment with the Hebrew language in which it was recorded. Perfect alignment, dawn to dawn. There is no confusion like with sunset theory. And I say, when you start accepting the words of the scriptures as they are written and the definitions that the original author implied, the confusion is removed. It becomes quite clear that the dawn design from the creation account fits firmly into these scriptures with no juggling necessary. Yet, when you try to fit sunset theory into the scriptures, there is arrows going everywhere, there is juggling, and still there is confusion. It's like throwing a bowl of popcorn in the air. It comes down all over the place. Confusion with sunset theory. Is it possible to find a second witness to this revelation within the same book of Judges? How about the very next chapter in Judges 21, 1-4, where something happens at Mizpah? Something huge. The decision at Mizpah, Judges 21, 1-2. Now all the men of Israel had sworn in Mizpah, saying, "There shall not any of us give his daughter unto Benjamin to wife." And the people came to the house of Elohim and abode there, when? Till even, before Elohim, and lifted up their voices and wept sore. Note again, the Israelites presented themselves before Yahuwah, petitioning him for answers. Yes, they were there until the light season began mixing with the darkness of the night season, or until Erev, or evening. That means the sun had set. This evening, Erev, is the identical time that Yahuwah came to walk with Adam and Eve in the cool of the evening, when the gentle breezes began to blow. the cool of the evening. This is after the sun has set. Let's continue on with Judges 21:3. And the people, when they were come before Elohim and they were pleading with him for answers, they said, and remember the time frame here, this is after the sunset, and they said, O Yahuwah Elohim of Yisrael, why is this come to pass in Yisrael, that there should be today one tribe lacking in Yisrael? Today. They did not count that the sunset changed the day. It did not change the day, not in this episode. Dawn to dawn. Do you realize that the petitioning words of this come to pass was spoken to Yahuwah after the sun had gone down, when the mixing of light was occurring? Now let us understand the importance of this verse. Judges 21:4. And it came to pass on the morrow that the people rose when? Does it say they rose after the sunset? It says the people rose early and built there an altar and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. To be early, by definition, is to be at the very beginning of a specified identity. In accordance with sunset theory, the new weekly cycle begins at sunset. Therefore, if sunset theory is applied to this verse, the tomorrow would have the Israelites rising early on the morrow at sunset to worship. Do you see a problem here? How do you arise early at sunset, even if it is the tomorrow? Something is amiss here. Yes, there definitely is a problem here. We have already seen the definitions and determined the morrow, or machar, begins with dawn, boker, on the next cycle. The very next time the dawn arrives, the morrow begins. That is distinguished very clearly with the word machar. For this particular situation, we will consider one more chart demonstrating both dawn days and sunset theory days. The chart will show the beginning of the events that lead up to the verses of Judges 21:16 to 23. And remember, the tribe of Benjamin needed wives, or eventually face the consequences of extinction. This is chart number 3. We're going to look at arising early on the morrow. And this is dawn to dawn. On the left, you'll see dawn starts out. Yahuwah's 24-hour cycle number 1. Then comes dawn. And then is Yahuwah's 24-hour cycle number 2. Below it, in the red box, we're going to see the sunset to sunset deception that come around 450 BC. Sunset to sunset. Will the scriptures fulfill it, or will it fulfill or have alignment with what is written? On the left, this is Yahuwah's 24-hour cycle number 1. Battle number 3, where 25,000 of the Benjamites were smitten. So the people came to the house of Bethel and sat there when? Until evening, that is, after the sun has set. And they sat there before Elohim and lifted up their voices and wept bitterly. They said, in this twilight, they said, O Yahuwah Elohim of Yisrael, why has this come about in Yisrael today, that there should be one tribe missing in Yisrael? Note this today. They did not consider the sunset as changing the day. They denoted today as starting at dawn. And it came to be on the morrow, that is machar, on the morrow, that starts at dawn, that the people rose early to build an altar there and brought burnt offerings and peace offerings. And this was at dawn. It is the breaking of the day. And we see clear examples of that written in Genesis 32, 24, and 26. Very clear examples of the breaking of the day. Continuing on. Please note the red box information. Did the Israelites arise early at sunset, build an altar, and begin worship services after sunset? Did they then continue on sacrificing through darkness of the night season? The word early, by definition, demands a time frame at the start of a given identity. That sunset is the start of a new sunset day. Can we find clarity here with the words of the scriptures by using sunset theory? Or is there something that is amiss, drastically wrong? Questions to ponder. Is it now possible for you to see the simplicity and perfect alignment when applying Yahuwah's dawn design to the scriptures? Do you see how impossible it is for sunset theory to align with the original Hebrew words that Yahuwah has preserved for thousands of years? I would like to talk a little bit about the simplicity of Yahuwah's dawn design. I was raised observing the sunset Sabbaths as a child, and I observed the sunset Sabbath for many years. When it come time that I saw this dawn start, what I had to do was drop my tradition. I had to drop what I had been taught. I had to make a choice. Either I stick with sunset theory, even though it didn't align with the scriptures and could not find, it just supplied confusion, or I could drop the tradition and I could adopt Yahuwah's dawn design as written, starting from creation. When I dropped my tradition of sunset theory, I found that the dawn to dawn design from Yahuwah was full of simplicity. It is our traditions that cause problems and confusion. Yahuwah's dawn design is actually very simple to understand. I ask you, how is it possible that sunset theory is still being taught as if it were an established Torah truth? We have seen in the scriptures, there is as a minimum 36 plus places in the scriptures where the sunset can be proven absolutely solidly to have failed to change any day whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. And I ask you, if the sunset changes the day, how many times can it fail before we suspect something is wrong? For the scriptures show there is 36 times plus that it has failed. Is it a surprise that sunset theory was adopted and incorporated in 450 BC by the same religion that tortured and crucified our Mashiach? I want you to think about this question very, very carefully, because the depth of understanding that this will bring to the surface is astounding. I'm going to read it again. Is it a surprise that sunset theory was adopted, as history denotes and records, adopted, and it was incorporated in 450 BC? That is before Yahusha come to this earth. And it was adopted by the same religion that operated the Second Temple era at that time, the Second Temple era that was contaminated by impostor high priests, by the same people that eventually tortured and crucified our Mashiach. As sunset theory was adopted at this time, at 450 BC, what operated before that? What system was in place before that? Was there a different way to observe the days of Yahuwah? Could it be? Is it possible that dawn to dawn was observed up until this point? Is it possible? That's what's written in the scriptures, and I say, count on it. Most of us have been ingrained so heavily with established ideas, claiming to be the truth from scripture, that it has become very difficult to part with these falsehoods. And I will testify that when you speak to people about this dawn to dawn as written in the scriptures, it threatens their platform of tradition. And people will become very upset when you threaten their tradition. Don't let that stop you. We need to witness for Yahuwah's word. We need to bring this forth because it is what is written. Through many personal experiences, it is a most difficult challenge to unlearn and let these warped traditions go. To understand how and why Yahuwah's days commence with dawn is very simple. If only we will accept the meanings of each inspired word at face value. At our website, studythecalendar.com, Neil tells me we have over 250 hours of instruction. And I would think that about 249 of these hours will be linked either directly or indirectly to the dawn studies. That is how important it is. I ask you, in Genesis 1, what is the first thing that Yahuwah outlined in Genesis 1? Was it not the start of the day being at dawn? Will that give us an idea of how important dawn to dawn is? Because the start of the year became after that, but the start of the day is first. Is dawn to dawn important? Extremely. When we are willing to do this, understanding dawn, that is, to accept the words of the scriptures, it becomes quite simple, wonderful, and easy. You have no idea how many people have approached us, and especially the ladies, because it is their burden mostly on the preparation night to come into line with a Sabbath day starting at sunset. And these ladies are so thankful to find out the truth of the scriptures, where on preparation night at sunset, you still have until dawn to complete everything, if you need be. And then at that point, you wake up at dawn on Shabbat morning, rested, comfortable, and happy. Dawn to dawn, it will improve your life. This study ends with an appeal. Friend, will you choose to be like a belligerent Benjamite, guarding convoluted traditions? Or will you heed the Torah and accept the dawn day to begin the weekly cycles, the Shabbats, including all feasts and festivals, just as Yahuwah has so positively proclaimed throughout the scriptures? And yes, indeed, the dawn starts every one of the festivals. There is no exception. The right decision just may change your life. And again, I say, count on it. It will. This is just one of a multitude of testimonies for Yahuwah's day start at dawn. If you have been blessed, share your joy with others. And again, any questions or comments can be sent to questions@studythecalendar.com. So this is the end of our study for today. And I appreciate your time that you have spent with me and listening to me. And I hope and I pray that you are blessed.